Okay, so for the other educators who cannot join our Zoom meeting, so we have a bit trouble with the Facebook connection. So this recording will be sent to our YouTube channel instead. So we will later on we will send out the link of the YouTube channel so that everyone can watch this educators meet talk. Okay. So now we can start. I would like to greet all of you again. So hi educators around the world. I'm Lisa Stefani, the Chief Creative of Kria ID and also your moderator today, along with Puri later on. So we are glad to meet you again in Educators Meet Talk 17 with today's theme, Invention Education. And thank you for taking part in our Educators Meet Talk. So despite the adversities caused by this pandemic, so we are glad to see that many people still value educational discussions and learning. So Creative Meet Talk as an online platform provided us the opportunity to establish a more inclusive environment that is able to reach various audience from different countries. So this event aims to build a positive and encouraging community for education enthusiasts and is an avenue to enrich participants and speakers' understanding and knowledge through interaction. So with the team focusing on invention education, we really hope to develop a brighter outlook for the advancement of scientific knowledge. And before we start, let me share briefly about Kria ID. So let me share my screen first to the next slide. Okay, so Kria ID is a center for developing creativity and innovation of the youth through collaborative activities that inspire, create, and dedicate their creations to the society. Kria ID implements their working cycle, which is inspiring, creating, dedicating, in designing learning experiences for students that can be integrated and implemented in their real life through several programs. So this event is organized by Kria ID and Aquila to Edu Coach, and would not be possible without the support of the Asian Foundation, Kria Academia, Ruang by Kria ID, Innovation World, IDE Education China, Discovery STEM Education, the Global Innovation Field Trip, and the Sustainable Living Lab or SL2. So for SL2 itself, which is our partner that is based in Medan, also runs Educators Meet Talk in Medan area, and they use Bahasa Indonesia as the delivery language, while Kria ID, the one that we are having now, is Educators Meet Talk, which is conducted in English. So before we start our session, may we now call on our esteemed CEO to share about the dreams of Educators Meet Talk. So Antonius, the time is yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Antonius. I'm from Korea ID. Thank you so much for joining our session at this moment. So basically, the idea or the dreams of the educators is actually to gather all educators around the world to share about anything that related on education development. So whatever your background in education, or whatever your passion on it, feel free to contact us to submit your idea about education, and hopefully you can be a speaker here, because the philosophy of Educators Meet Talk is about the educators can be a speaker, educators also can be as participants. So this is a social platform for all educators around the world to share the passion about the education. So at this moment, I'm so glad because our friends from 3 continents, from America, from Europe, and also from Asia, we are gathered here to talk about the invention education. We know that this is not not too common for many schools. We know about that, so that's why we try to invite all friends to share about this. So hopefully it can be inspiring us on this evening for all educators. So hopefully you can enjoy. And then another part, we are already close our speakers until end of 2020. So if you guys, educators, you want to submit, so feel free to submit. for your material, we will start again to select and curate the educators to be a speaker start from January 2021. So enjoy. Thank you so much for Jake, Melissa, and Ting for this golden time. We hope that we can inspire each other and also connect each other. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Antonius, for the warm welcome. So now we will be proceeding with the sharing session. So we have three distinguished speakers lined up today in order to share their experiences with Invention education. So each of our speaker will share their thought about Invention education for about 15 minutes. And after all the three speakers done sharing, we will continue discussing the questions that asked by the speaker, asked by the participants, and the speaker will try to answer it. So during the speaker's presentation, you can drop your questions to a certain speaker or maybe to all speaker by typing the question in the chat room, okay? So without further ado, let me introduce the first speaker. We have here Melissa Butt from the United Kingdom. She is the founder of Discovery STEM Education, co-founder of Invent Future Global, UK Chair of World Educational Robotics, and Consequential Robotics Ambassador. So fellow educators, please welcome Melissa Butt from the United Kingdom.
Hi everybody, thank you very much to Cryer ID for inviting me to be involved in this very valuable event, international event. So I'm from Discovery STEM Education, which is an educational organisation based in the United Kingdom. And our actual headquarters are based in a museum called Kelham Island Museum, which is in Sheffield. And this is an industrial museum that celebrates the history of innovation that we have in our city here in Sheffield. We are the heart of the UK, the heart of the steel industry, and we have a strong background in innovation. So our headquarters are based here, and we're now focusing on looking at the history of innovation, but then now supporting young people and educators to work on the future of our innovation. So we work very closely with Sheffield University, which is very well known for being one of the best universities in engineering and robotics in the United Kingdom. We also work alongside the UK's government's Department for Education to look at how we can support educators in schools to ensure that the skills gap between leaving school and the skills that are needed in industry, in the STEM industries in the United Kingdom are bridged. So supporting schools to help young people to have the skills that they then need for the careers and the future jobs that we expect to have here in our country. So we have a lot of educators who ask us, so STEM just means the subjects, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, right? And they ask us what our actual opinion of the word STEM, the acronym, what does it actually mean? And our belief is that it's not just those subjects, but we believe that it's actually it's when children use their science, technology, engineering and mathematics knowledge to solve real world problems. So it's all about them solving real world problems. And so in order to be able to do that, we work on two main programs. So we feel that in order for children to be able to really do this, to do STEM and the important aspects of STEM, solving real world problems and preparing themselves for the real world and the jobs of the future, we feel that robotics is a really important aspect of that. So we work on a World Educational Robotics Programme where children are given problems that they then have to solve creatively. So they do have to do an element of inventing. So they are given real world set problems And then they need to use their engineering skills and their coding skills to solve those problems. So they need to invent solutions. They need to engineer and invent coding and engineering solutions to be able to solve those problems. And they're given the problems. The other area that we feel is really important in STEM is that pure invention, where they're not given a problem. They have to think of a problem themselves. They have to come up with their own problem, and then they have to invent something that solves that problem. So robotics, where they're given and they have to invent, and then our invention programs are all about children having that freedom to develop and look at their own problems that they can find, and then developing a solution and being guided through that process. So we develop curriculums, and we have a centre where we run programs ourselves in our centres. We have a few different bases, and then we also run our programs in schools as well. And then we develop curriculums, and we train teachers to be able to use those programs as well. So this is just a little video to give you an idea of our World Educational Robotics event that we've done in the last couple of years, where if you look closely, you can see that the children they all have very different robots, because they've all invented very different solutions. And if you were to look at their computer, you would see that they've all invented very different ways to solve these problems. So this is at Sheffield University. This is an event that we had at Sheffield University with children from China, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. And most of the staff working here are real engineering PhD students or robotics PhD students. See if I can just skip to the end of that. Sorry, I think we've... Okay, there we go. So you can see that from the World Educational Robotics work that we do, we use the Abilix platform, which is an engineering and coding platform, which we use for our World Educational Robotics programme. And when we started to do Invention education, we looked around at all the different kinds of materials and equipment that we could use, and we started quite at the beginning asking children to always use upcycling recycled materials, so things like cardboard. We've also used things like Lego and Connects. We've used all different kinds of equipment. But then we realised that in our robotics programme, children were quite often very keen to take their robots apart and do other things with their robot parts that they weren't really supposed to do. And we realised that actually what a lot of these children want to do is they want to invent their own things, completely their own things, and they wanted to take apart their robotics kit and just come up with their own inventions. So we've ended up finding that whenever the children have the option to go and choose equipment in our centre, they tend to go and choose their robotics equipment and break it down. And so we've ended up using the same equipment for both of our programmes. This is a picture of some young boys who invented a kitchen where your parents have all of their devices together. They've got a microwave on there, they've got a cucumber chopper, and they've got a blender as well. So their parents they don't have to walk to different parts of the kitchen. They've got all of this sort of, it's like supposed to be one device all together where they can do everything they need to do in their kitchen. This is a boy who has invented something using, again, the same Abilix platform. He's invented something, it's a beach helper. It's to help you out on the beach somehow. This is an example of some young people who have engineered and invented something that uses the basics of a motorbike. And I think they'd got some device there where they were trying to do testing on the bike and making sure that the wheels work properly. We've got a swing here, which has a motor on the right-hand side. So these are working parts, these are working inventions that actually move. This girl here is using a colour sensor. So she's invented something which she wants to switch on when a sensor detects particular colours. So she's just working on her colour sensor there for her invention. Here's some wonderful structural engineering. And this is some of our invention classes which then had to go online due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But still they were practical, and still we were able to use the equipment that we had. This is a wonderful structural engineered invention for parking cars. And there's just so many different inventions that we've been able to support young people and educators to be able to support their schools to do using this platform, because it's so versatile. But one thing that we've always specialised in, even before we started to do robotics and invention, we have got a strong background in our organisation in biochemistry and science. So we have a lot of qualified science teachers, people with PhDs in biochemistry and in other sciences. And children are always really keen to do some real kind of research, real scientific research, using test tubes and doing real science and chemical experiments. So what we realised was that actually the kits that we're using, the kits that we had been using for robotics and children were starting to invent stuff with, have got some really, really super powerful sensors on them so that the robots could follow black lines. Really powerful grayscale sensors that detect changes in colour. And one thing that we'd always really wanted to invest in but couldn't afford was something called a spectrophotometer. And any of you who have a background in science and chemistry or research science research will know that this is a really valuable piece of equipment, because you can do all sorts of experiments with all different kinds of solutions. And whenever you have a chemical reaction, you can generate a standard curve. You can then test other unknown samples and read off of a standard curve to find out the amount of a particular chemical in a sample. But we really could never afford one of these. And if we did have them, to be able to do our classes sufficiently, we would need more than one anyway. So it would be a really big expense for the few chemistry experiments that we do like that. So we wondered, would it be possible to get the children to invent some spectrophotometers for us? And so we gave them an experiment to do where they had to do some chemical reactions and get some colour changes. They were looking for protein using a chemical reagent called Biuret. And we gave them test tubes, and we gave them the parts. We put all the parts of the kit out and asked them. We taught them about spectrophotometers, and then asked them if they could invent their own spectrophotometers so that we could do this kind of experiment all the time. And each child was able to innovate their own spectrophotometer. This is just a few examples here, and you can see that they've all done something very different. The key thing is just that they need the test tube to be held stable, and they need the sensor to be touching the surface of the test tube so that they can get a recording. And they've all innovated some very different kinds of spectrophotometers, but then they've been able to do some really high level science experiments. They've been able to do university level kinds of experiments where they've learned how to do this thing called a standard curve, and then they've been able to test lots of samples and look at the difference in the colour. So they're looking on their interface, they're having a look on there, and they're getting results, numbers that change according to the colour of the sample that's in the test tube. So as the colour increases, then the numbers increase on the recordings on their interfaces as well. So this is an example of the kind of work that one of our students did. They were able to get test tubes here they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 test tubes, and they put different amounts by weighing different known amounts of protein into those test tubes. They then added the chemical reagent, and the darker the chemical reagent represents the more protein that is in that particular sample. And then they were able to put each of those test tubes into the spectrophotometer and get a recording. And so they've then plotted a calibration curve. So they've plotted for the amount of protein that they've added. They've then been able to plot the optical density reading, the recording that they got on their spectrophotometer that they'd engineered themselves. And then from that, they were then able to get any unknown sample. So they took samples from patients that had kidney disease. So the more kidney disease progresses in a patient, then the more protein they have in their urine. So these young people had lots of samples, and they were able to just put the sample with the Biuret reagent, so they got a colour in their test tube, put it into their spectrophotometer, and get an optical density reading. And that reading doesn't tell them how much protein is in there, but what they were able to do then is, according to what their recording was, what their reading was, they were able to read across onto the calibration curve and down to find out exactly how much protein was in each of those patient samples. And this is really high level research stuff. So we've developed a curriculum where the children are doing this kind of thing over a number of weeks and then taking it further. So they're innovating as they go along, and then they're trying to solve a problem and working on real research problems where at the end of it, whatever their results are, it might lead to them then wanting to invent a medical device to help in a particular medical problem. So their invention process is going from engineering to then chemistry to then engineering again, but maybe engineering something to solve a medical problem or some other kind of science problem. And the story just keeps going on. The invention story for them just keeps leading from one thing to another. They have been able to code some of their inventions. So inventions where they've got things that are moving, they've got sensors, they've got motors, then they've been able to use the Abilix platform to code their inventions. For the younger children, they've been able to use a flow chart, which looks like the picture that's on the screen at the moment, where they just drag up blocks, and it's similar to Scratch. There is another version of this, which is Abilix Scratch version as well. And as the children get more proficient with this, and as they've started to use it more over time, they've then started to click on the C button, which means that they can then convert their code and see the equivalent C programming language, which is one of the really important coding languages of the world. So they're not only inventing now, they're learning basic coding, they're then learning high-level C programming coding, and now they've been able to update their interfaces recently so that they're also able to convert their code into Python programming. And over time, they've stopped using the flowchart, some of the children who've been doing this for a long time, because they've learned the C programming now, they've learned their Python, and so now high-level coding is coming into their inventions as well. I was really lucky then I did quite a lot of work to be able to hunt down the person that had innovated and invented the kit that our children were doing some great work with. This guy, Dr. Yun, he is the person who's invented these kits. And I really wanted to speak to him because we had so many young people and so many teachers asking us, this is wonderful. We're able to invent and do loads of things. And we want to be able to invent and do even more stuff because this is so versatile. We've got so many different components. Children can basically engineer whatever they want to do, but there's a few extra things that we want. So teachers started to ask for things like fire sensors and electromagnetic sensors, so they could bring all sorts of other science into their invention process. I managed to speak to Dr. Yun, and I managed to pass all of these messages on to him, along with some other educators as well. And he's now developed, his team have developed an invention kit, this is in the very early stages, but it uses all of the parts that we've been using so far. But then he's listened to our requests for not only grayscale sensors, but also color sensors, so that children can actually get their inventions to detect different colors and then do something when they detect a particular color, which might be important in whatever they're trying to achieve with their invention. We've now got infrared sensors, electromagnetic sensors, fire sensors, camera sensors, lights, a whole variety of motors, a whole variety of cog systems, 6-side connector blocks, and a huge variety of structural components. And this is an example of the children just getting into one of those kits and just using all the different components that there are. This is in very early stages, and we're kind of researching this here in the UK and testing out this new kit, which hopefully will be available to others, other educators across the world, hopefully this year or next year. So everything that we develop, all of our programs that we develop, our curriculums that we develop, and our teacher training programs, more information you can find out about those from our website, www.discoverystem.org.uk, or on our Facebook page, Discovery STEM Education, our Twitter, which is @discovery_STEM_, or you could feel free to email me, melissa.butt@discoverystem.org.uk. And we are happy to share our resources with you, share our practice with you, and help in any other way that we can. And we would love to add you onto our mailing list to keep you updated on when we do teacher training online, and also in our centre as well. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll pass you back over to Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Melissa, for your insight. So hopefully we can learn a lot from you, and also the educators here as well. So we have some future teachers as well joining these educators MeeTalk, so they can take note and learn something from you as well. Okay, so for our dearest educators, please type out your questions in the chat box, and we will discuss them during the question and answer session later. Okay. Next, coming up, we have another inspiring sharing from none other than Ting Yin from China. So let me share my screen first. Okay, so Ting Yin is the CEO of IDE Education, which is based in China. So to keep the time, so please welcome Ting Yin from China. The time is yours, Ting.
Hello. So I don't have the permission to share my screen.
Okay, wait, we will give you the permission.
No, yeah, now I can share that. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Let me share first. And okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and good morning. I am Ting Yin from IDE Education China. Thanks very much for inviting me to this wonderful MeeTalk. I'm very happy to share with something we are really excited in China. That is the Invention education event we're holding annually in China. That is the Invent Future Invention Convention, and we call it IFIC. And Invention Convention, as you may know, is intended to inspire young people to become innovators and inventors and entrepreneurs. So the heart of the Invention Convention is STEM, invention, and entrepreneurship learning, which prepares students to be critical thinkers and problem solvers for 21st century. Now, the Invent Future Invention Convention, IFIC, is the first student invention convention event in China. So students from kindergarten at a very young age, usually at 5 years old, to high schools are presenting their innovative inventions at IFIC annually. It really inspires them to care about people and the world around them, and discover and solve problems in their real life and create inventions with social impact and business value. So here, let's take a look at some students' inventions. And this invention is called the viewer. Yeah, it is invented by 2 grade 8 students. So it is a rain shield on the roof of this car. So you can see the yellow part of this car, right? The problem the invention solved is that on rainy days, the rainwater usually falls on the front window of the car. So the driver could not see the road in front of the car clearly, usually will cause very terrible accidents. So the inventors used the Lego EV3 and 3D printing and some other skills to install a freely retractable rain shield on the top of the car so that the rain could not fall on the front window. And in summer, it can also shield the sunshine. So this is the first invention. And let's take a look at another one. This one is called dishwasher. It is from a grade 3 student. The invention solves a problem that no one wants to wash dishes after dinner. Oh, this usually happens in my family too, because it is really a lot of work. So the inventor used a motor to trigger the brush in front of this invention and to wash the dishes. So people can just use one hand to hold it and wash dishes. And another invention here is called Kid Protector. It is from a grade 5 student. This watch that can send out the distress signals when a student who wearing this watch is encountering a bullying situation. So the watch will make a very loud SOS sound and have bright flashing and send out these distress signals to parents, teachers, and the police through Wi-Fi. So try to protect the kids as soon as possible. Okay, so you have seen 3 inventions. These inventions are from If I Say event. If you are the judge at If I Say event, then which invention will give the highest score? The number 1 viewer, or number 2 dishwasher, or number 3 kid protector? Which one will give you the highest score? You can leave your decision to the chat box. Yeah. And in an invention event, what are you looking for then in an invention or inventor when you're judging? So what is the most important? Invention prototype, or how students explain their invention, or the technique used in this invention? Which one would you think is the most important? Okay, so in invention event, sorry that my computer jumped to a wrong slide. I will be sharing that again. So the most important is the inventing process. That is what we are looking for in an invention convention event. Now, a very famous person told me, that very famous person is also here today, the educational value of inventing is not the product, but the process. So inventing is a realistic practice for success in the real world, just as Melissa just shared. That is the real world problems that really matters in an invention that students made. So it is this process that prepares students to be future problem solvers. Now let's have a quick look at what inventing process means. The first step, students need to identify a real world problem and discover the value of solving this problem. And then understanding it, do some research of existing solutions. So to discover the causes of the problem and determine if student's solution is unique. Then ideating, students need to choose one solution from many brainstormed solutions And then comes to designing, building, and testing. After that, students are going to investigate whether their solution really solved the problem. So they need to test their inventions to the people who had this problem, get feedback from them, and keep refining. Finally, students will show their most important factors of the invention and the inventing process to other people to sell their ideas to the world. And that is the whole inventing process. So that is why if I say event, we have 3 category judging rubric. The first one is invention process, and then invention impact and communication. And invention process contains the whole process from the identifying to testing, and invention impact is more on the research or work students have done to understand the market and the value and originality of the invention. Finally, communication that will evaluate the prototype, displays, and the pitch. Now, let's get back to the dishwasher. So the dishwasher is, as you just saw, it may not use too much techniques, but we can see a clear inventing process in this one. I'm sorry that it is in Chinese, but I can read that for you. Okay, so this is the display board of the dishwasher. So here, students find that in his family, no one wants to wash dishes after dinner, and his mom and dad usually argue about that. And then he researched, here you can see there are some existing products. So the students started some existing products, compare them, and then after comparison, he decided to invent a washer here, not taking too much place and easily can be taken away and will not use too much electricity. So this is what he found out from the existing products and decided what he wanted to invent. And after that, he brainstormed 3 possible solutions. And then finally, after comparison, and he finally decided to use this one to be the final solution. So after that, the student further asked some friends' families to see whether his invention would work for other people. And then people give some feedback that the washing speed is not quick enough. So the inventor decided to improve the efficiency in the future. And the inventor recorded all the inventing process clearly in the inventor logbook, as other inventions in FIC did. So we can see clearly of his problem-solving process. And there's another sample. Sorry. Okay, I will show you another sample. This is another sample. It's created by a grade 2 students. Even though the prototype here, it looks very simple. And we can see how he got this final invention. He found out this problem from his grandma, in fact. One day he found out that his grandma wants to answer a phone and answer some message, but his grandma is using a walking stick. It's really hard to answer a phone while we're using the stick because our mobile phone is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So he found out that it is a problem. And then he investigated this problem and did some survey and find out that many older people have this problem. He didn't find any existing product through e-shops. Just remember, he is a grade 2 student, so he can only go to some e-shops or going to the supermarket to see whether there are some existing products. And after that, his father, with the help of his father, he found out 2 kinds of the walking stick and 4 types of the phone holder. He decided to combine the walking stick and the phone holder together. So, and then he recorded the refining process. This is version 1, and he find out he need to still, there's something wrong, and he made a version 2, and then he made a version 3. Every time he improved that a little bit, and then finally, he calculated the whole cost of this invention and decided to price it at $20 US. So this is the whole inventing process of this inventor. It clearly shows the problem-solving ability of these young students, even though he is grade 2 student. Okay, so these are what we are looking for at IFIC event. The student has the ability to solve any problems in the future. Along this journey, they have the ability to gain new skills by either learning from existing products or from the feedback from other people or from the help from other people. What is more, they understand the value and the impact to the society of every decision they made. So this is why the heart of IFIC is STEM education. That is STEM and invention and entrepreneurship. As you may notice, most problems students are solving are their own problems or the problems from the people around them, like their family members. We can usually see similar inventions, but solving totally different people's problems, just like this picture shown. There are 2 rulers and 2 cups. So it seems like the quite similar solution, but they are solving totally different problems from different peoples. For example, the ruler with a block, this is this white one, the ruler with some blocks inside. That ruler helps the pupils, Chinese pupils, to write Chinese characters with the same size and can be at the same baseline. So that would look quite pretty because it is invented by students at grade 1. So that is his own problem because he wants to write some characters very pretty. You may know that Chinese characters usually look like a block. And the second one here, this ruler is attached to a cap, to a pen cap, because the students find out that it's usually not that convenient to take a pen and a ruler. What if to combine them together? Then everything would be solved. Everything would come too easy. So that students invented this pen with a cap, with this cap with a ruler, and that solves his own problem. And the cup here, this white cup is invented for the inventor's little sister, because his little sister usually after the teeth brush, he find out that the cup really looks very dirty. Did you have this problem too? You will find that after some time, the cup you use for brushing your teeth usually get very dirty at the bottom. So the little sister doesn't have the ability to make it clean. That is the problem comes from. So the brother want to invented this BB cup for her. And this green one is also from an inventor want to invent something for his parent, for her parent, grandparents, because her grandparents is a little bit older, and then could not use the hand to hold the cup steadily, so that the water usually spilled out. So the inventor invented this cup to help her grandparents to hold the cup well. The water will not spilled anywhere, so it would be easy for them. Now we can see that the rulers, the inventors solved the problem from themselves, and the cups, the inventors solved the problem from their family members, from their families. Do you know which invention is the best seller during our IFIC event? Can you make a guess? which one sells best? Yeah, so it's this one. This is a writing ruler. It is so popular that at the first day of our last year's Invent Future Invention Convention, it was totally sold out at the first day. So many other inventors came to this writing ruler inventor to buy this ruler. So it was sold out. It is really a great entrepreneurship learning experience for this student, so that to understand the value of his invention. Since students are solving real-world problems and create inventions with social impact and business value, so the judges in FIC are usually composed by educators and experts in different industry sectors, like engineers and designers from some leading companies in China, and some investors from virtual capitals. And some awards are also set by the industry leading companies. Winner students feel so proud that the value of their invention is recognized by real-world top companies. Okay, so do you want to see more? Then you must come to FIC event and to see more innovative cases. And we're going to have the FIC 2020 in next month, and we are very excited to welcome inventors from Indonesia and United Kingdom to the event and celebrate that together with the Chinese inventors. Thank you. Thank you, and back to you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you so much, Ting, for that wonderful sharing. So once again, everyone, if you want to ask questions to Ting, so you can drop your questions in the chat box, and later discuss the questions during the question and answer session later on. Okay. Now, last but not least, we have Mr. Jake Mendelson. So he's affiliated with the Global Innovation Field Trip, which established in the USA. So please welcome Jake Mendelson from the USA. The time is yours, Jake.
Hello. Let's see if I can get this to work. Wait a minute. Let's see if I can get it to work. Okay. I never trust technology. Wait a minute. There we go. Do you see invention education in the real world?
Yes.
Lisa, you see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, good. I'm sorry. I'm just always confused by this stuff. Okay. Thank you very much. I hate being last because now I have to follow all those great presentations. My name is Jake Mendelson, and what I want to do is talk to you about invention education, maybe from a higher level than specific types of inventions. I am involved with the Connecticut Invention Convention, and we have been around for a long time. There are many states in the United States that are running invention programs. There we go. And I just want to give you the numbers for Connecticut. This is our 37th year. We started a long time ago. Every year we have about 18,000 students participate, and we have a state final with about 1,000, 1,200 students in it. Connecticut is actually a very small state. The entire population is just a little over 3 million, so it's not very large. One of the things we're very proud of is we have about a 50-50 male-female participation. Some people think inventing and engineering is a male activity, but we have shown that the young girls and women are just as good, if not even better, at this. So one of the questions we always start off with is, what is the purpose of school? And the purpose of school is to create a productive member of society. When your students get out of school, we want them to get a good job. We want them to have a family and to have some things, a car, and maybe a house, and take a vacation, have a good life. That's the purpose of school, to get them ready for that. So the question then is, what is a good job? And it turns out that today, all the good jobs are problem-solving jobs. Lawyers solve problems, doctors solve problems, engineers solve problems, but electrician solves a problem. Somebody says to the electrician, I want an electrical outlet over here. And the electrician has to figure out how to run the wires from over here to over there, doing it safely, effectively, obeying the building codes. They are solving a problem. Those are good jobs today. But in the future, all the jobs will be problem-solving jobs. When I was a child, there were good jobs in a factory, picking something up, painting it green, and putting it over here. Picking it up, painting it green, putting it over there. Those jobs are all going to be gone. And the reason is robotics. We are entering a robot revolution, and all of the simple jobs that don't require problem solving will be taken over by robots. And so your students need to know how to be problem solvers. When I was a child, being educated was knowing facts. What is the capital of Brazil? If you knew that, they said, oh, you are very smart, you are educated. Now I pick up my cell phone and I say, what is the capital of Brazil? And I get the answer. What we need today are not people who know things, but can make connections. And that's what education is. Making connections, putting things together, solving a problem. So in order to have students solve problems in the future, we need to have them solve problems today. And that's what invention education is all about, teaching students how to solve problems. Now, a typical math problem might be, how much is 2 plus 2? I'm an engineer. Nobody ever asked me that question as an engineer. Never asked me that question. But that's a very typical math question. That is a STEM question. But our real problem, our real question is, what can you do with that knowledge that is of benefit to society? Take that STEM information that you learned in your traditional STEM classes, in your science class, your biology class, your math class, and then apply them to a real world problem, a real world issue. And that's what invention education is all about. Why use inventing? And you've heard this before. The value of inventing is not the product, but the process. And I know we saw some really interesting products that students had made, and they were great. And by the way, I love that ruler and I love the cup, okay? But that's really not the goal. When I was in school as a teacher and I would ask students, how much is 2 plus 2? It wasn't because I wanted the answer. I knew what the answer was. What I wanted was for them to figure out how to come up with the answer. I wanted them to understand the process. It's the same thing with invention education. The process that the brain goes through is more important than the product that the student has made. And so inventing is realistic practice for success in the real world. And that's what we're trying to do. The goal of using inventing is to learn how to think and to solve problems. And once you can do that, you can solve any problem, no matter what the technology or situations occur. I am an engineer, I've mentioned that. I've done a lot of work in robotics. I have started robot companies. I have done all kinds of things in robotics. I have designed products, electronic products that have been sold around the world. But by degree, I am a chemical engineer. My degree is in chemical engineering. And people have said to me, Jake, how can you design that circuit board? You're a chemical engineer. How are you able to design that electronic board? And I said, because as a chemical engineer, I learned how to think and solve problems using chemicals and pipes and pumps. And now I'm using electrons and wires and batteries. It's the same process. All that has happened is we've changed the technology. When I tell students that there were no cell phones when I was a child, they do not believe me. They think there's always been cell phones. And there will be things in their future that do not exist today. We can't teach them what that equipment is and how to use that equipment in the future. We don't know what it is. What we have to do is teach them the process. And then no matter how the technology changes and what new problems occur, they will be able to succeed and do well. Here's something what I guarantee people in Connecticut. We will give students an unforgettable, life-changing experience. The student may not remember anything else that they've done in 4th grade, but they're going to remember their invention. They're going to remember what they did in the Connecticut Invention Convention. I guarantee it. We've been doing this for 37 years. I now run into full-grown adults who, when they find out that I'm connected with the CIC, they say, "Oh my goodness, I invented this wonderful thing." And they tell me all about their invention. They said, "Of course, nobody liked it but my mother, and nobody would buy it, but I still have it. It was something that changed their life." They're going to use their knowledge and creativity, the knowledge and creativity that they got in their normal STEM classes. They're going to use that to solve real world problems. And by the way, you've heard examples of this. It is their real world. As an adult, we may look at their issue and say, well, that's not really important. To them, it's important. The child whose parents were fighting over washing the dishes, he does not want his parents to be fighting. To that child, this is an important problem. They're going to have to solve it in a realistic way. Once again, you just can't make something up. It's got to actually work in the real world. And we'll talk about that in a second. They're going to use that experience to pursue careers. It could be engineering careers. It could be other careers, because all careers, all jobs in the future will be problem-solving jobs. And they're going to do that to make a difference. They will change the world. So what is an invention? In Connecticut, we define an invention as, it could be something brand new. The first person to create a pencil, they made an invention. It could be an improvement. Somebody took an eraser and took a pencil and says, wait a minute, I use these two things together, sticks them together, creates something new. That's an invention. It could be a completely different way of doing it. The person who invented the pen does the same thing. You can use it for writing, but it uses a completely different technology. That is an invention. In Connecticut, our focus is problem-solving skills. So drawing a picture, writing a story, designing a game, they're very creative, clever things to do, but they do not solve a problem. So we do not consider them to be inventions as part of the Connecticut Invention Convention. When do schools do this in Connecticut? Well, some schools do it as an after-school activity. After the school day is done, the students stay, they have an invention club or invention group, and they'll be working on the programs. Some do it during the day as an option. The students in the United States sometimes have the chance to do things on their own, optional enrichment. Sometimes it's scheduled as part of the school day, and sometimes it's embedded in the curriculum. So the math teacher, the biology teacher, the chemistry teacher, the science teacher are all working together with the students on their inventions and their project. Some schools in Connecticut do it at one grade, 4th grade. They don't do it before, they don't do it after. Some schools do it in multiple grades, maybe 4th and 6th grade. Some schools do it sequential, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And some schools, every single student, every single year, every grade does the Invention Convention. Clearly, that is the best, because when they start off when they're very young in kindergarten, and they work and work and work, by the time they're in 8th grade, they are incredibly good. I keep talking about science and technology because I love science and technology, but I love the Invention Convention even more because it is more than that. It is language arts, it's graphic arts. You have to understand the society and the culture. You're making something that's going to solve a problem. You have to know what's going on in the culture. It is public speaking. You have to present what you're doing. And it is collaborating and working with people. This is what we all have to do as adults in our jobs. We have to do all of these things. Maybe not everyone every day, but we always have to have all these skills. And so that is what the Invention Convention is giving to the students, a full rounded experience in real world activities. what do the students end up with? At the end of the process, they end up with a working invention. Now, it's age-appropriate working. Obviously, an invention made by a first grader is probably not going to be as good as an invention made by a ninth grader. We expect that, okay? So it's working. They physically have to put something together. We want that experience of doing that. They have an invention log, okay? An invention log is a diary. As they're doing it, they're writing down what they did, what worked, what didn't work. It is not a book report. It is not something that is turned in and completed after you're done. It's a diary and you're working on it as you're doing it. They have to make a display board showing what they have done with their own personality, what they think is important. Once again, this is what we all have to do. When you come up with an idea, you have to tell people about it. And then we have a judging circle, which is really just an interview, a discussion with other people about your invention. So here are some examples of working inventions, all different kinds of things. Once again, it's great if students can reuse stuff that they've had. Recycling materials is wonderful. We always say it's better to make something than to buy something. All kinds of different inventions. We have an invention logbook. Some schools want to have the students have a very beautiful, organized logbook. That's wonderful. Other schools say, nope, just write it down. Write it, it's okay. And if you make a mistake, cross it off. You're not being judged on beauty and neatness. You're being judged on what's going on inside your head. And I love this. And this student you'll see right here, obviously this was a very good point, and they put a whole bunch of stars and wrote important. They had made an accomplishment. They had accomplished something. We have the display board, lots of different styles. Once again, we want the students to use their own personality. Some display boards obviously are better than others, and that's okay. Some students have more graphic talent than others. But it's a wonderful learning process because the students get to see what other students have done and how they have done it. And even if my display board wasn't perfect, when I saw Susie's and hers was better, I go, I'm going to use a different font next time. I'm going to do it better. And then we have judging circles, which is a terrible name. Judging circles are not circles, and they're not judging. It's really the students in a group getting together with some adults, and the student gets a chance to explain and demonstrate what they have done. And the other people get a chance to ask questions and talk to them about it. The inventor gets to be the center of the stage and gets a real wonderful experience of, wow, there are people interested in what I have done and how I have done it. We have a state finals, and here we are getting set up for the Connecticut Invention Convention state finals. It takes place at the University of Connecticut, which is our state university. We take over many different areas within the university. And here they are in the gym setting up some of their inventions. We have display tables and the students are setting them up, and they're in the beginning, there are parents there watching and everything. We chase the parents away though when we do the actual judging circles. And here we have a judging circle, and the students get a chance to explain what they have made and how does it work and why might it be a good idea. And then of course we have an award ceremony, and here the people are lined up and you've got some people in suits giving speeches, but more importantly, we get a chance to honor and celebrate what the students have done. We do not actually have winners. We have recognized inventors. We believe that every student who has gone through this process has gained and has learned. Now, some students may have done a slightly better job, and so we want to recognize that they have done a good job, and we give away awards, which is called a recognized inventor. We also have sponsors and companies who have supported us with money and sometimes the personnel to help us do things. And so they give out sponsor awards, and they tend to give out sponsor awards in a theme that is important to them. So we have a food distribution company, which gives out an award based for an invention involved in good health. We have the US Postal Service, which gives an award based on delivering the mail. And then we have a lot of happy and proud inventors getting their picture taken, and they get a certificate of congratulations. We also give a plaque to the school that they came from, congratulating the school. They are a school of distinction, and then every year we give them another sticker that they can put on and say how good their school is doing. The mind is not a box to be filled. It's a fire to be ignited. I really believe that. That is the purpose of school, to ignite the students. And I want to show you two students, and I'm not showing you these to tell you how wonderful I am as a teacher. That's not the purpose. I want you to see about minds that have been ignited. This is a young woman, and I was her teacher for science, and she thought I was teaching her science. And she now left school, and she now has a PhD in astrophysics. She works for NASA up studying the stars, and she has a PhD. And she wrote this in her PhD thesis, a little note to me. It says, "For inspiring me to succeed beyond what I could imagine." She thought I was teaching her science. And what I was really trying to teach her was what she could do with that science. And she has gone way beyond anything I taught her. And that's what I have tried to do, is to start a fire. This is another young woman. She is, I think, in about 5th grade. And they were working on an invention project, and they were using a material called parallax. It's a microprocessor. And at the end, her teacher said to me, this was a student, she wasn't one of the best students in the class, but she really came alive because of this project. And I want to share this very short video with you.
When I first started doing parallax, I didn't think that I was going to be able to do it, but now I did, because now I can do my invention, and I know that I can do things because I did it.
I hope you could hear and understand that. She said, I know I can do things because I did it. And that is the goal. She has now been set on fire. So the future and the students who will make that future are waiting for you. And when I talk about the future, I'm talking about the future of your students, but also the future of your country. And even more importantly, frankly, the future of the entire world. Your students will go out and do great and wonderful things. They may not cure cancer, but they will be problem solvers. So, what can you do? We have created the Global Innovation Field Trip, and it is a platform for students around the world to present what they have done. It is a platform for you as a teacher to talk about what you are doing in your schools. It's absolutely free. If you go to globalinnovationfieldtrip.org, you can sign up. We have another event coming up in October. You may think, oh, it's only September, I have plenty of time. It is filling up fast. So please go to the site, log in, tell your students they can talk about something they have done. It doesn't have to be a great invention. It's an innovation. Anything that they have done, we want to hear about it. We want to make them special. We want to make them a hero around the world. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jake, for the impressive sharing. So all of our 3 speakers already shared their experiences and best practice in invention education. So yeah, you have seen their sharing about what Melissa, Ting, and also Jake are doing in their country, in United Kingdom, in China, and also in the United States as well. So if you are wondering, and if you are based in Indonesia, so maybe you might be wondering how and where can you do these inventing activities. So maybe you can contact us, Kriya ID. So we are doing this exactly the same activities, yeah, just like them, and we have the same concerns, just like Melissa, Ting, and Jake. So let's collaborate. Okay, so we will directly proceed to the question and answer session, and I will pass the moderator baton to Puri. And Puri, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa. So, hi everyone, I'm Puri, the next moderator for this session. We are so happy to see all the participants here today. Thank you so much for all speakers for your informative and interesting presentation. Very well, everyone. Now we come to question and answer session. And once again, please kindly type out your question in the chat box. So if you would like to ask your question directly, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and wait to be acknowledged by us before asking your question. And we encourage you to turn on your camera when doing so. Okay. I think we already have some questions from the chat room, and let's begin from the great question. For the first one, we have question from Wahyu Widosari to Melissa. Wow, it's a very cool tools to learn biochem. How to hack the burette? Can we change with other solution that kids can find around the house? Like when I need Google, I substitute it with iodine and the betadine. So maybe for the Melissa, the time is yours to answer the question from Wahyu Widosari.
Wahyu, thank you. That's an awesome question, and it really made me smile as well. To hear that you're asking the kinds of questions that our staff and other educators who we've been working with have been asking as well, and particularly for working with younger children. Teachers in primary schools do not want to be using burette reagent, but they want their children to be able to access some level of this kind of project where they are engineering a spectrophotometer and learning about the basics of it. So we have started very young children in primary school from age 5 really, just having a go at engineering something that will be able to detect a change in colour, and what we've used is just food colouring. So we have just, we've told them that it's a really special chemical that's doing a chemical reaction and detecting a really special chemical, but we've just used food colouring and just diluted it with water to get a variety of colours. And even with older children, if you're short of time, or if you can't get things like the biochemical reagents to let them actually do the science experiment part of it themselves, if you're not able to allow them to do that part of it, if you've just got some food colouring, you can tell them, you know, this is what it would look like, or you might be brave enough to tell them that it really has been a real chemical put in there in a chemical reaction, or you might want to be honest with them and tell them that this is what happens. You do get a variety and change in colour when you do use chemicals. You can definitely use iodine. We've never tried using iodine, but you do get different colours from iodine depending on the levels of starch. So if you had a sample with no starch, you would get a light brown colour, but if you had a sample that had a lot of starch in it, would go to a navy blue or dark black colour. So you certainly would see a change. I am sure you would see a change on the grayscale sensors if you were to use the same setup for that. Also Benedict's solution, where you get an orange or blue colour. There's so many other chemical reagents that I just can't think of on the top of my head, but anything that changes from a lighter to a darker colour, you should be able to do this with. I hope that answered that question.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Melissa. Hopefully that answered the question from Wahyu Widosari. And I think we still have another question. Okay, for the next question, for Ting Yin from Persona Gemilang to Ting Ying, your program is very interesting. The invention are made with the need or contextual problem that faced by the children. I just want to know what is your strategy to encourage that young people to think critically and start to process their mind to create something using their surrounding. Okay, thank you. That's a great question, I think, and maybe the time is yours to answer the question for Ting Yin.
Thank you, Puri, and thank you, Persona. Thanks very much for the question. And first, I think that for many Chinese students, in fact, they are passing from school invention programs or some learning center invention programs, then come to a national event if I see. So usually they would take about 2 months time to finish the whole inventing process. And so there are 3 key points related to the programs, even though the programs may be different in different schools and in different centers, but there's something in common. That is three key points. The first one is the 7 steps, because all students need to follow the whole inventing process. So they will, from the very beginning, to discover some problem in their life. Since students are discovering the problems by themselves, so they have a very strong intention to finish that invention. It's not a task they have to do. It's something they want to invent. So at the very first point, this is something they want to do, so that they can finish that. Maybe more easier for them to finish that. So that is the first one. They all need to finish the 7 steps in their schools or in learning centers. And the second one that is very important is that students need to communicate with people during their programs. Because you may notice that from the very beginning, identifying a problem, if they find out the problem, they need to talk to people. They're not just staying in the classroom. That would be a little bit boring. So they need to talk to people. They need to find out who had this problem. So they need to go to that people and ask, do you have this problem? Do you have some method or solution to overcome this problem? Something like that. They will do their survey and try to find out the current solutions. And they also need to do some research from the internet or any way they can think of to finish this one. So that makes them feel that they're connected with the world, makes them feel that they are really solving something. It's not just a task. And that is very important, that in build or just like in ideating part, they're brainstorming something. They also need to talk with other people to see whether these brainstormed solutions are good, which one to choose. Every step they need to communicate. They are not doing that alone. They communicate with people and make it happen. So that is the second one. And at the end of their invention, they are going to show that with their display board or with their pitch video or with PowerPoint if they are doing that online. So they have their work shown to everyone and find out that they can sell that, just like that ruler, or find out that their solution really help people and they are really inspired by the real world companies. Usually they are leading companies, just the top programming software companies in China, or the top EDA companies in the world, things like that. So they feel that they are doing something really valuable. That makes them great confidence to finish that. And the last one in common they have is usually in China, students all have logbooks. They need to record every step they did. From the very beginning, identifying a problem, the survey they did, and everywhere they researched, and every prototype they refined. So they recorded everything. When they look back to that, they find out that, wow, I have done so much work. I have done so much work. I did great. So it gives them much confidence and to show that. And one example is that during this year, we have seen that inventors participating in this year's IFIC event. There are many inventors. They have joined that not the first time. This is their second time to join that. That means they want to do that. So that is not the teacher's job to push that. You have to finish that. That is the teacher's job, is to facilitate them, to help them to find out, to follow the 7 steps, to form the thinking ways of solving a problem. So this is we find out that what usually students do in this program. And many different organizations may have different ways to teach the students. Some use just like Lego, and some may use, for example, quite a lot of schools also use WABLIX kits, since that they are using this way to let students know that you can use something to do that. If you find something better, you can also do that. you can also use something better to finish your invention. So students will, will finish their invention. They are motivated, mostly motivated by above three keys. Yeah, I hope I make it clear and answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, that's good question. Thank you so much for the question, and also thank you so much for the answer. And what else do we have here for the question? Next question. Okay, the next question from Persona Kemilang to Jake. It's a wonderful presentation as we might know that Indonesia is a low-mid country. We still face basic problem, but in the same time, we have to face the revolution industry 4.0. Maybe you can share with us your opinion. What should we do to bring the invention mindset, technology, and engineering to our education process? While we are not trying to lose the students' mind and can involve in the process, sometimes they think that future is scary. Thank you for the question, and the time is yours for Jack Mandelson to answer the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, you described Indonesia as a low-mid country. I assume that you're talking about that it's not very high in altitude, because I have seen a lot of ideas and inventions that have come from Indonesian students. They have been part of the GIFT program and gave presentations, and they were astonishing. They were amazing. They were excellent. And so I think what you have to do is not only change the idea, frankly, in the students, but maybe change the idea of society, okay? Your people, your students are very creative. They have the ability to do this. They just have to realize that they can do it. And that's one of the reasons why we have them start off with a problem that is important to them. Because now they can see that they have done something and they have changed their world. They have made something in their world better. And that really gives them a lot of confidence to go on and do other things. You wouldn't start off with something that was inappropriate. So when you have, for example, when you have children playing football and they start to kick the ball, very young children, they're not very good. They're not going to be in the World Cup, but that's how you begin. And it's very exciting, and there are people cheering, and they have fun, and sometimes they kick it, and sometimes they miss, and it's a great experience for them. And that's what this is supposed to be. If you go to very young kids and you say, we're going to cure cancer, that is scary. They don't have any idea of how to begin to do that. But if you say to them, we're going to do something that is important to you in your world and do something that you can accomplish, they will be able to do it. And then later, when they are adults, they will be the people who do cure cancer.
Okay, thank you for the question and answer from Jake Mendelson. And then I think we still have another question here from Valerius Rico. Hi, I'm Nawan from Indonesia. All of the speaker to the presentation incredible. I would like to ask to Mr. Jake how to build or stimulate students to have an invention idea and how to tip for us, mahasiswa PhD, to be good teacher. And thank you for the question. And the time is yours for Jake Mendelson to answer the question.
Can you put the question up on the screen, please? Or no?
Okay. Wait for the moment. We will show our screen.
I'm glad you're having technology problems. I have them all the time. I feel better. But I know you're doing it deliberately just to make me feel like I'm not alone.
Okay.
How to build this. Okay, very good, very good. So here's the point. The question is, how do we get students to have an invention idea? And the answer is, we don't start with the idea. we start with the problem. So we have, unfortunately, we only had a short period of time today, but we have a whole curriculum. And in the beginning of the curriculum, the first activity is students will go around looking for problems. What issues, what problems do they have in their lives? Don't look about other people's problems, problems that they have or problems that they know about. It could be a problem that maybe their grandmother has, or a problem that their father has, or a problem that they've seen somebody on the street have. So they're looking for problems. And then once they have a problem, then the thing is now, how do we go about solving it? And we don't call it an invention. We call it a solution to the problem. If you have this issue, what do you do about it? One of the things that we did this summer is we had a summer challenge, and it was part of the IFIC program that Yin Ting talked about. And the students just got together, and the theme was rain. And what issues are there with rain in your country? And some people had problems with rain, that there was too much rain. And some people had too little rain. And some people had rain that only rained 1 month in the year and never rained again. All different types of problems. And that's where you start. You start with the problem, and then you try and figure out how to come up with a solution. What can you do? And it doesn't have to be anything fantastic. Remember, it's not the solution, it's the process, what they are thinking. That is what we are striving for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Jake Mendelsohn for the answer. So I remind you again for everyone here, if you would like to ask your question directly, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and wait until wait to be acknowledged by us before asking your question. And we encourage you to turn on your camera when doing so. So we still wait for another question.
Well, if there is no question, can I just answer the second part? I just read the second part of his comment, and he says, how can we be a good teacher? Okay.
Oh,
And
sure.
let me talk about this. Okay. When I was a child, a good teacher was a person who knew all the answers. When you were in math class, we knew that our math teacher knew all the answers to all the questions on all the tests that we were given. Okay. That's not true anymore. A good teacher does not have to know the answers. A good teacher is someone who gets the students to find out the answers for themselves. And you saw that PhD thesis from Amara Soto. She was a student of mine, okay? She thinks I understand her PhD thesis. I do not. She has gone so far beyond me. And I think that's really what a good teacher is. A good teacher is somebody who may not know the answers, but knows the questions, knows how to get the students to start discovering things for themselves. I would often have students come to me with solutions to problems that I never thought of. It never occurred to me to do it that way. And to me, that's the mark of a good education, that the students are able to do that. So I think the key to being a good teacher is not to worry about knowing all the answers, but to be concerned more with getting the students to become their own teachers, to learn how to learn.
Okay, for everyone, we still open the opportunity for you. If you want to ask your question directly, please raise your hand function in Zoom. We're still waiting for your question. So you can talk directly to the speaker. So, okay.
We have a question about STEM in the pandemic world. So Melissa's still here, right? I'm going to have Melissa answer, but before Melissa answers, let me tell you, I know Melissa is doing robotics, and this is back in February when the virus started. And I said to Melissa, well, one thing is for sure, you cannot teach robotics virtually. You cannot teach robotics over the internet. It cannot be done. Now, Melissa, would you like to explain to everybody how I am wrong?
Well, about 6 months ago, I would have said exactly the same thing. And our emphasis in our organisation has always been on how important it is to be doing hands-on practical. And the thought of doing that online, unless a child has got their own equipment, we thought just wouldn't be possible at all. But then we had no other option. So when we saw that things were starting to change in other parts of the world, and we predicted it was going to start to change here in the UK, from a very early stage, we started to look at how on earth we're going to do this online. And we managed to convert our robotics programs to an online platform, so using Zoom. And so what we've done is our teachers have the robotics equipment. Some of the children have got their own robotics equipment, but that's not because we've said that they need to have it. They just happen to have it anyway at home because they use it at home. But all of our classes have been designed for children who don't have their own robotics equipment. If they do, then they can do what the teacher's doing at the same time. But we've ended up doing a lot of great coding. So they've been using the coding platforms. So with World Educational Robotics, they can get the coding platform. You don't have to have the kit. You can just freely download the coding platform for free. So the children can do the coding at home. They can then share their screens on Zoom. If they can't download the coding software for whatever reason, which they should be able to, but if they can't, they can always type out code into the chat box and send to the teacher. Or there's parts of our session where children are doing lots of coding and then they're sharing it with the teacher's downloading it onto their robot, and they can see what's happening with the teacher's robot. If they have their own, then they do it themselves. All of the parts of our sessions that used to be about the children engineering a solution to a model, so they needed to get a model to move and do something, we have just got them to draw. So as long as they've got some pen and paper, we put lots of pictures up on the screen of all the bits of equipment that they were using when they were in their classes, and then they can do drawings and then hold up the drawings, and then the teacher can trial some of those engineering solutions for them. A lot of discussion and a lot of the it's usually the teacher using their robot. If there's any other children who've got their own robot, then they will also do demonstrations as well. And we've done a lot of focusing on the real important theoretical parts of robotics. So not just them doing the practical stuff, but them really then stopping using flowcharts and starting to look closely at doing C programming language and getting really good at C programming language, which can all be done online. And in fact, sometimes it's better to be doing that kind of work online, because when they have got lots of engineering equipment in front of them, it's very difficult for them to come away from that and to start sitting at their computer and learning how to convert their flowchart into C programming. So they've been able to really develop their C programming and their Python programming, which you can easily do online. And it's such an important aspect of robotics to really advance the level of coding. And then, just like I showed you the calibration curve that we do in chemistry, we do a similar kind of thing in robotics. And online, children have really been able to focus on that. So they've really got to grips now with calibration curves for distance, speed, and time. So they really understand how to very quickly figure out what they need to put into a start motor button to make their robot go a set distance, because they've done calibration curves. And rather than it being optical density on one side and the amount of protein or whatever chemical in a sample, they have done time, so how long it takes, so time along the bottom of their calibration curve, and then up the side they've done the distance. So they've let their robot go at a particular speed, so they've chosen, say, speed 30, and they've looked at how far does the robot go in 1 minute, and then they've plotted from 1 minute on the bottom how far it goes. Then they've done 2 minutes and plotted how far it goes, or sorry, not 2 minutes, seconds, in seconds. So they've looked, and they've got a calibration curve then of how far the robot goes in a set amount of time at a set speed. And they can do that calibration curve for different speeds as well, because sometimes they need their robot to be going faster than other times. And then when they look at a new challenge, okay, I need my robot to go to this area on the mat, they can then get a tape measure and measure on the mat how far they need their robot to go. Or if it's online, we can tell them the distances, and they can figure out, they can look at a whole scenario of where their robot needs to go to different places, and they can very quickly figure out the exact numbers that they would need to put into their coding button without having to do loads and loads of trial and error. They can just use their calibration curves, finding the distance, and then reading across their calibration curve from the distance down to see what the amount of time is that they would need to put into their start motor button, because their start motor button is all about time and speed, and then that determines the distance. And the same with angles as well. They've done calibration curves. They've done this all online on the computer. They've learned how to do a calibration curve to make their robot turn a set angle, so a set amount of degrees. And then when they're given a problem, either online or when they get back into doing their practical work, it's much more clearer in their mind now of what kind of speed and what kind of time, what kind of numbers you need to put into the button to make your robot turn that particular degree that you need it to turn to do a particular job. Whereas before we'd done our online classes, the children did a lot of trial and error. They would be putting all sorts of, like 10 seconds at speed 100 to make a robot move 10 centimeters, and the robot will be going on forever and ever and ever and saying it's just not working. But it's because they didn't have that understanding, that insight into what kind of numbers work to get a robot to go a set distance or to turn a set degree. So we've done lots of that kind of really high level robotics and physics online. And if you ever speak to any of our teachers who've been developing all of our curriculum, if you ever get in contact with us, they can give you lots and lots more information and give you even more ideas to answer that question. But it is possible. And so if robotics is possible, invention is definitely possible as well. Invention is easier than robotics. In fact, it's much more open-ended, and they can just use anything. If they've got an Abilix kit or they've got Lego or Connect, that's great, but they can just use upcycle material, and they can just use anything with Invention. And they can even draw. We've had children in COVID-19 who said they didn't really have anything, and they didn't have the recycled materials that they needed, so they did just draw. And then they've got that drawing, they've got that blueprint, and whenever they can get access to the materials, they can do that. They can do that building.
If I can interrupt Melissa, but I want to agree with you, Melissa. I ran a program this summer, totally virtually, because they closed all our schools, and we had kids building things out of, soda straws and sticks and cardboard and paper. Unfortunately, I live in the United States, and everyone thinks, oh, everyone in the United States is rich. No, and you can do real good inventions out of real simple materials. And the great thing about using simple materials is now you're thinking about the process and not, oh, I've got this really expensive piece of equipment. What am I going to do with it? So it can be done.
And what's great with the invention, when they're sometimes their prototype, it might be that they're designing some special kinds of shoes that can help you to do something special in mud or ice, or they're trying to innovate shoes, then they can probably get hold of some old shoes, and their invention is like their innovative prototype is like, it's like a real thing. Or we've had children who've done a lot of inventions with clothes, innovating clothes, so they just use old clothes. Or it doesn't have to be old clothes. If they're innovating something just sticking on with tape, then it's very open-ended.
Okay, thank you so much for all the speaker for sharing. So now we are almost at the end of our session. Before we officially end, let's take a group selfie first. So for all the participants, please show your face. Make sure you didn't turn off your video setting so that we can see you and then we can take a picture. Okay, let's take some screenshot, please. Smile in 3, 2, 1. Okay, once more. 3. In 3, 2, 1. Can we have again? In 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you very much. We will post this picture on our Instagram post tomorrow. So if you haven't followed our Instagram, so you can follow us at Kria_ID. So all right, it's already it's almost 6 p.m. now. Honorable audience, thank you for your active participation, and we hope that you have learned a lot from this conference. And for our esteemed speaker, Melissa from the United Kingdom, Ting from China, and Jake from USA, thank you for the inspiring and sharing about the invention education. Well, for our speakers, is there any closing statement for you from Melissa or Jake? Nothing? Okay, so once again, I remind you, since in this Educators MeeTalk, everyone can be a speaker, everyone can be a participant. And this evening, you are here as participants. It will be great if you, on the next session, you become one of the speakers to share your interest, just like our three speakers did today. So if you are interested to share and become the speaker in our session, we are really open for ASEAN educators, and you can contact us and share to us your topic to be reviewed. We will send you the e-certificate in this session by filling out the feedback form. So please go to the link that we have shared in comment and fill out the survey one time. Once you have successfully done, you can receive your certificate automatically by email from CreaID. We will give you 1 minute to fill out the feedback form, and 1 minute start from now, so everyone can start to fill out the feedback form by clicking the link. Okay, thank you so much for spending some time to fill out this feedback form. So your feedback will help us to evaluate the effectiveness of this session and allow us to make improvements. So we would like to say thanks again for all the speakers that already shared about the informative and interesting information for us and to the participants for your active in participant. So hopefully this session will be beneficial for everyone here. We glad to meet you again in our next online session. Thank you for your attention. See you. Let's collaborate once again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.